Hey guys, Mr. Jalapeno here with another little DIY. And on today's project, I'm going to be showing you how to repair water damaged baseboard. I always recommend to just replace any water damaged trim, especially if it is MDF. It kind of acts like a sponge, so it just absorbs all the water and it just doesn't look good if you just patch it up. So first thing you got to do is get your utility blade and cut the caulking where the baseboard meets the wall. This is super important, that way you don't damage the wall and you don't make more work for yourself. Next, I'm going to be using my flat bar to pry that baseboard off the wall. And I'm also using that cat's claw as a hammer. And as you can see here, I'm putting something behind the flat bar, that way I don't damage the wall. You can also just use like a 5-way or a putty knife to remove them with an actual hammer if you want. After you're done removing the baseboard, just make sure you check the wall for any nails that still might be left over on the wall. Then get your tape measure and measure out the pieces. You can also just measure the wall, but in this case, I'm just going to be measuring the pieces I just removed. The first one was 131 inches and a quarter. The second one was 158 inches and an eighth. I like to write them down on my blue tape, that way I don't forget. Now, after going to a couple Home Depots, I finally found the baseboards that I needed. So remember, I measured the first one at 131 and a quarter and the second one at 158 and an eighth. I then used my square to make sure that the line is super straight. Sometimes the miter saw might not be cutting straight, so I like to use that square to make sure, like I said, the lines are super straight. And fortunately here, I just have to do straight cuts, no miter cuts. But anyways, after I cut my pieces, I'm going to go ahead and start painting. The homeowners use semi-gloss paint for all the trim in their house. And luckily they still had some left over, which is always a plus. That way I don't have to go to the paint store and try to match it. So after I put the first coat of semi-gloss, I let it dry and then I apply the second coat. These boards here are already primed, so I don't have to prime them. And after they're pretty much dry, it's time to install them. And as you can see, these ones are super easy to install, no coping cut required. I'm using an 18 gauge brad nailer to install the baseboards. Just make sure you're hitting the studs, that way it's going to be nice and tight up against that wall. After you're done nailing, it's time to cover those nail holes. There's a lot of products you could use to fill the holes, but I personally like to use this Crawford's Painter's Putty. And if you want to get any of the tools or materials I'm using here in this video, just click on the link in my bio. Go to my Amazon storefront and you can get them there. They are affiliate links, so I do benefit monetarily if you're kind enough to use them. But anyways, once you're done filling in the nail holes, it's time to tape everything off. I like to put the blue tape on the wall about a 1/16 away from the baseboard. And then I also like to use that 20-minute Alex Fast Dry to fill in the gap between the baseboard and the wall. It does two things. It fills in the gap and it also prevents the paint from bleeding through under the blue tape. That way you have a nice straight line like I mentioned earlier. Just make sure the caulk is dry before you start painting. And then I'm also going to roll one thin coat of paint on the baseboard to cover the nail holes. And after you're done painting, it's time to pull that blue tape. Look at that nice straight line. I have a little bit of OCD, so if those lines don't look good, it kind of bothers me a little bit. Let me know in the comments if maybe I should have done something different, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Jalapeno Solutions.